We speak student.
Shmoop in the Bible, the 12 Minor Prophets. Hey y'all, Cecil B. Shmoop here, coming at you with the book of the 12 Minor Prophets and their thrilling quest to finally see an R-rated movie. What? I read between the lines. Yeah. Anyway, the book of the 12 Minor Prophets is actually just 12 short books condensed into one. It's kind of like the 12 Days of Christmas if all the gifts were like 5 golden plagues, 4 natural disasters, 3 acts of destruction, 2 rounds of famine, and a partridge in a pear tree. Or something like that. Yeah, well, singing's not our thing here. Yeah, we missed it. All right, well, because seriously, who would want that? So these prophets were kind of like God's B team. They gave a bunch of warnings about Assyria, and they let the people know how badly they were screwing up. Sounds like they were super fun guys to hang out with. Since there are 12 of them, and not all of them have super cool stories like being eaten by a whale, I'm just going to hit you with a few highlights. Take Hosea, for example. He was ordered by God to marry a prostitute. Sure, it sounds a little fishy. Too soon for fish puns, we know. Sue me, I'm excited for the whale tale. But when God wants you to marry a prostitute, you marry a prostitute. So Hosea and his new wife, Gomer, yeah, I kid you not, her name was Gomer. Yeah, not Pyle. What kind of mother looks at her newborn and goes, "Yep, this kid is definitely a Gomer"? Didn't have a chance. Anyway, Hosea and good old Gomer have 3 kids together, and their names translate to No Mercy, Not My People, and God Will Sow. Their mother was named Gomer. What did you expect? But we can tell by those charming names that God is a little peeved with Israel at this point, right? Well, we then move through a succession of prophets who are basically letting everyone know just how ticked off God is, while locusts, invaders, and a partridge in a pear tree drive home the point. And after all the lords are done leaping and pipers have finished piping, we eventually arrive at the most famous of all the minor prophets, Jonah. And boy, oh boy, it's a whale of a tale. Yeah, that was obvious. You knew that was coming. I'm dolphinately scaling back on the fish puns. No, seriously, I've got some good ones. It's krilling me not to include them. Guess that could have been better. Oh wait, one more for the halibut. Okay, we're done. Okay, back to the thing they pay me to talk about. God instructs Jonah to go to Nineveh and preach against their wickedness. But Jonah is like, "Dude, no. I told you, I had plans that weekend. Travelocity doesn't let me cancel. The gnome's kind of a jerk." And he hops on a ship going the other way. And God is like, "This is why you book through the hotel, Jonah. Never trust the gnome." And sends a storm to sink the ship. The sailors draw lots to see who is to blame for the storm, as one logically does when it storms, and Jonah is chosen. Jonah, ever the dramatic, is like, "Throw me overboard, man. Priceline negotiator never would have let this happen." But the sailors are like, "What? That's actually crazy, dude. Let's just try and ride out the storm first, then we'll see about tossing you over." So they give it a good try, but pretty soon they're like, "Yeah, the dramatic Travelocity dude is right. We gotta lose him." So they toss Jonah into the sea. And as usual, God's watching this entire spectacle go down because, well, the Bachelor is on hiatus, so he's got some free time up there. So God's pretty entertained, but he decides the whole thing needs a little more excitement, so he sends a giant fish to swallow Jonah. Anyway, Jonah stays in the fish's belly for 3 days and 3 nights before he's puked back up onto dry land. Yum. And he leaves a pretty negative Yelp review of the place the second he has Wi-Fi. So Jonah takes a 3-hour shower, then heads to Nineveh to preach to the people. And guess what? They actually listen to him. That doesn't happen all that often. We know that at Shmoop. And Jonah is still having some whale-related PTSD, so he runs away to live in a hut, which after the whale is practically Nineveh's Ritz-Carlton. Anyway, God has a nice leafy plant grow over the hut, but then is like, "Nah, this story just got too happy." So he sends a worm to kill it, and a strong wind to blow it over. Jonah's like, "Seriously, dude, the whale wasn't enough?" And God's like, "Sweeps are coming up. We need the ratings, Jonah." Well, reading between the lines, people. You know, it's what we do here. The rest of the books follow the same pattern of God threatening to unleash some holy wrath on the Israelites, and the Israelites being like, meh, in response. Well, the 12 minor prophets ends with Malachi and a promise that the prophet Elijah will come and turn the people's hearts so that God won't have to, destroy them, which is great. One less thing on God's calendar. Okay. Well, this book also marks the end of the Old Testament, which means the next time we meet, we'll be in the New Testament, and you can bait you'll be hearing some fantastic stories. Yeah, sorry. You don't know how long I've been waiting to break out my fish puns. And hey, if you think of a good one, let me know. All right. Until next time, I'm Cecil B. the Shmoop.